I'll sing Hari Hari Kabe Haba Vrindavanavasi. I'll just quickly read the translation within 30-40 seconds. O Shri Hari, when will I become a resident of Braj and behold with my eyes the radiantly beautiful forms of the divine couple? Relinquishing the pleasure of sleeping on a wonderful bed, when will my body become gray colored from sleeping on the dust of Braja? Giving up the enjoyment of the 6 flavors of palatable food, when will I eat the madhu curry obtained by begging from the residents of Braja? Circumambulating the holy places, I will roam from forest to forest and then rest on the bank of the Yamuna. I shall find relief from the midday heat under the cooling shade of Bangshivat. When will I sit in the groves of Vrindavan and closely associate with the Vaishnavas? Narottam Das prays, when will such a state be mine?
Thank you so much, Ramananda Prabhu, for beautiful kirtan. So now we're ready to begin the first day of Sri Vrindavan Prajmandal program. And so for the first hour, Shripad Chidandi, Bhaktivedanta Chidandi Maharaj is going to take us to Kaliya Daha and to Srila Prabodhananda Saraswati Thakur's Bhajan Kirti and Samadhi. Then, for the next period, Sripad Bhaktivedanta Nemi Maharaj will take us to Sri Madan Mohan Temple, where Srila Sanatana Goswami's Bhajan Kirti is. And then for the last section, we'll go back to Sripad Chidandi Maharaj to go with him to Ashta Sakhi Mandir. So I'm not going to spend very long introducing these places because I know you have so much to say, Maharaj, and that Nimi Maharaj also has so much to say. And I know you're worried we're going to go over. So I'm just going to hand straight over to you right now so that you have as much time as possible to speak. Oh yeah, just before I do though, if we do go over, we've been legally required to say, if we do go over, or if you just have to leave for any reason, we're not taking any offense. So we're just happy that you can come for any amount of time. So if we do go over, don't feel like you're being rude by leaving. We understand you have duties, and don't feel like you're missing out too. Well, you are a little bit, but there are recordings, live recordings on Facebook, on YouTube, so you can catch up. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over to you, Maharaj, and you can begin.
Jai Tarunji. Thank you, Tarunji. Gurave Gauda Chandraya Radhikaya Tadalaye Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tadabhaktaya Namo Namaha. I'm first of all offering millions and millions of Dandavat pranams unto the lotus feet of my most beloved Gurudev, Nitya Leela Pravishta Om Asto Tarasarashi Shimad Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj. And I'm offering the same again millions and millions of times unto the lotus feet of our most beloved Nitya Leela Pravishta Om Asto Tarasarashi Shimad Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. And all our Rupanuga Guru Vargya and all the Vaishnavas present on this thread today, and anyone else who may listen later on. My prostrated Dandavat pranams to all of you. So today is a most glorious day. It's the first day of our actual walking parikrama. So yesterday we celebrated our Sankalpa, and we celebrated the Tirabhav of our most illustrious Srila Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Goswami Maharaj. So we connected basically with all of our Guru Vargya through the medium of Srila Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Maharaj, because he's like a connecting pole, you can say, to Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, all of these personalities. So yesterday we very much went into that zone. It was very, very beautiful. I made something of an omission yesterday when I was discussing the Sankalpa. We didn't actually glorify Jamuna Devi, where we were standing in front of performing our Sankalpa yesterday. So today, now, if Manjalali would like to put on the screen, I want to just chant the first and the last verse of this Yamunastakam. I won't go through the whole thing, but this will very much pull us into the atmosphere of Braj Mandal. So I'm just going to chant this first verse, and then I'll read the translation. Then I'll chant verse where we're standing now. We've all just come out of the main gate of Gopinath Bhavan, a large group of devotees, maybe 1,000 devotees, and we're gazing at the beautiful waters of Jamuna Devi, and we're remembering our Sankalpa from yesterday. So I'm just going to recite this verse by Srila Rupa Goswami. Braturanta kasya patine bipati harini prekshayati papino pipapa sindhu tarini nirama durbi apya bandhu mamarvadara binda bandhu nandini. Shri Jamuna Devi prevents one from having to go to the city of her brother Yamaraj, the Lord of Death. Simply seeing her delivers even the greatly wicked from an ocean of sins. Her sweet waters captivate everyone's heart. May Jamuna Devi, daughter of the sun god Suryadev, who in this song is called Aravinda Bandhu, friend of the lotus, always purify me. So now, if you'd like to scroll down to the last verse here, I'm just going to.
Can you see it? You're on mute.
Well, I have to unmute Maharaj. If he's on mute, ask to unmute.
Okay.
I'm going to make you a co-host so you can automatically unmute yourself. Okay, very well.
Okay. So now the devotees can meditate on this beautiful Astakam at their leisure and catch more intensely the exceptional flavor of Jamuna Devi. My Gurudev proclaimed many, many times that there are 3 Mahabhagavats always residing eternally in Vrindavan. That is Giriraj Govardhan, Brinda Devi, and Jamuna Devi. These 3 personalities, they always are there present. So this is the final verse. Tushta buddhi ashtakena nirmalomi chestatam tvam vaneno bana putri sarva deva veshtitam yastaviti vardhanasva sarva papa mochane bhakti puramasya devi pundari kalochane. O Surya Putri, O Devi, O Jamuna, whose powerful waves are purifying and who is surrounded by all the demigods. For those persons of satisfied intelligence who recite this prayer, please increase their current of bhakti for the lotus-eyed Sri Krishna, who liberates people from all their sins. This is my supplication at your feet. Jamuna Devi Maharani ki jai. So we're all on the steps of Gopinath Bhavan, and we're appreciating with great honor Jamuna Devi, who is gently rolling in front of us, beside us. Now we're going to walk for about 1 kilometer to the Samadhi of Srila Prabodhananda Saraswati. But before we do that, this morning in particular, today in particular, I want to orientate everyone who's not orientated with the geography to some degree of Vrindavan. It's extremely helpful. It's our eternal home. We should know approximately where all the 12 forests are. It's not very difficult. There's only 12 forests. And as we're walking up to Prabodhananda Saraswati, we should know we're walking in the direction of north. And on our east, there's across the Jamuna. Manjalali, if you'd like to put that sketch up of the forests, please. This is a very, very helpful little, I call it a mud map. It's the sketch map. This map was made in 7 or 8 minutes this morning by one very kind devotee from Canada. Her name is Kamala Devi. And she was rushing off to work, and I begged her, she's a graphic artist, to please quickly put this together. So she did in a record space of time. And it's beautiful, it fits. So we are now on the western bank of the Jamuna. And across the Jamuna, if you look down the bottom of the map, across the Jamuna, there's Mahavan, Lohavan, Bealvan, Bandiravan, and Badravan. These 5 forests are on the other side of Jamuna Devi. That's all, just 5 forests. And they're principally, we could say, like Balaram country. There are many, many pastimes of Baladev Prabhu is in this area. Dauji is also here. If we look on a detailed map, we can see far more forests and villages, etc., that are in fact. On this side of the map is Gokul, Mahavan. In the forest of Mahavan, down the bottom, there is Gokul, the village of Gokul, where we will visit very soon. So we are on the other side of the river, on the western bank of the river, and behind us, the first forest is Madhuvan, then Talvan, then Kamudvan, then Bahulavan. These 4 forests are quite close together. They're like in a group, so to speak. And then you have the extensive forest of Vrindavan coming up from the Jamuna. It comes like in a V shape with the point at the village of Vrindavan on the bank of the Jamuna, and then it spreads itself out to include Govardhan. Govardhan should actually be further back. It's not quite geographically placed correctly, but it's in approximately this area. This place is Govardhan. Then on the other side is Kadirvan and Kamyavan. So that's it basically. And you see the dotted red line around the side. That shows the border of Rajasthan on the other side. So we're in Uttar Pradesh, UP. So this is a wonderful meditation for us, certainly as we're wandering through all the different forests. If we have a rough idea, it's like if you go to a city and you know where the main streets are, you feel kind of orientated, you feel like at home more so than if you would just arrive and not really know which way's which and etc. You'd be a little bit confused, disorientated. So knowing this little map, and for the enthusiastic devotee, we can chant these names daily. Badravan, Bandiravan, Bealvan, Lohavan, Mahavan, Madhuvan, Talvan, Kamudvan, Bahulavan, Vrindavan, Kadirvan, and Kamyavan. And each time we mention the name, if we have an approximate idea of their location, and certainly after our 30 days together now, we will understand many, many of the pastimes that are being performed in so many of these forests, these wonderful forests. So that's the map, so to speak. And you can download that map and you can begin to familiarize yourself with where the forests are. It's very, very helpful to appreciate the geography of Vrindavan. So now we're walking north from Gopinath Bhavan. We have Jamuna Devi on our right, and we're walking, as I said, for approximately a good kilometer. And we're going to come to Kalia Krida. And just before we come to Kalyakrida, we come to the Samadhi of Srila Prabodhananda Saraswati. Srila Prabodhananda Saraswati was originally from Sri Rangam, and his brother is Venkatabhatta. And Mahaprabhu, as we know the pastime, he remained in Sri Rangam for the whole Chaturmasya, and he convinced these two brothers and all their family members to change their focus, their nishta, from Lakshmi Devi to Sri Radhika, to Vrajendra Nandan, Shyam Sundar in Vrindavan. So Mahaprabhu, this pastime is very beautifully described in Chaitanya Charitamrita, and my Gurudev describes in many, many places this relationship that Mahaprabhu, very, very sweet relationship. And also Gopal Bhatta was a very young boy, the son of Venkatabhatta at that time, and he performed wonderful service to Sachinandan Gaurahari. And of course, we know later on, Gopal Bhatta, when his parents left this world, he came to Vrindavan and resided there, and is now understood as one of the prominent 6 Goswamis who took the works of Sanatana Goswami principally and assisted him in all his publishing of his works, Hari Bhakti Vilasa, etc. So Prabodhananda Saraswati, in his Prakat, in his Siddhadeya, he is Tungavidya. Tungavidya is considered 5 days older than Srimati Radhika. And she's exceptional in all talents of language, astrology, talking the language of the birds, in all the plant life of Vrindavan, in mantras in particular, to offset snake bites. So many incredible qualities and talents all of the Sakis had. And so Prabodhananda Saraswati, in his spiritual form, he is none other than Tungavidya, one of the Astasakis. So then, after Mahaprabhu had left Sri Rangam, sometime later, Prabodhananda Saraswati, he comes to Vrindavan, and he fully immerses himself in the deepest mood of bhajan, to such a degree where he would live in an incredibly solitary place. We'll visit his place when we go out near Kamyavan. In Kamyavan, there's one place called Lukluki, and we can see from the top of a hill, when we look down, we can see his bhajan kutia, or where his bhajan kutia was. And it's in a really, really dense jungle place. Practically no animals even can get through the dense jungle. And yet Prabodhananda Saraswati lived there alone for so many years, performing intense bhajan. And the fruits of that bhajan manifested in the most wonderful granthas, most wonderful books that he bestowed upon the conditioned souls for their pleasure, particularly the Vrindavan Mahimamrita. Vrindavan Mahimamrita is in 18 volumes of poetry, of remarkable, heart-wrenching prayers of supplication for the mercy of Radha and Krishna to perform their seva to them. But mixed amongst these prayers of direct supplication, there's many, many beautiful verses. I just want to recite a few to you just to get a flavor here. So Manjalali, you can put that Prabodhananda Saraswati text on the screen. That's the map still. That's it.
You
Okay.
see it? Yeah, okay.
So you can from the first one. Lost, yes. Scroll down, Manjalali, from the first one. Okay, get to the second one. So I'm going to read you a separate one to this verse that's on the screen. This is one verse that he writes very beautifully. The veena makes no sound. The flute does not play the eighth note. The cuckoos no longer warble. The gopis are silent. And Lord Hari gives up his love talk when Sri Radha sings the glories of Vrindavan. So this is one of his very beautiful verses in the 14th Shataka that he wrote. Another one is Radha and Krishna worship Vrindavan, saying, Beloved, let us multiply our lives by millions of times, and with these millions of lives, offer arati to Vrindavan. May glorify Sri Vrindavan. So then another very beautiful one, I think this is the one on the screen. Oh, yes. Oh, brother, when you close your eyes in death, where will your loving wife, children, brothers, relatives, and friends be? Where will your fame be? Where will your pride, wealth, education, control over others, and other powers and opulences be? Where will your good qualities be? O learned and intelligent friend, why do you not renounce these temporary things now and run to Vrindavan? So very powerful words. And the second one here, have you heard yourself glorified? Have you not heard yourself glorified again and again in many lifetimes? What varieties of sensual pleasures, beginning with enjoyment of beautiful women, anointed with sandal and decorated with splendid garlands, have you not enjoyed in many lifetimes? Now please become averse to all these sensual pleasures. Now become like a bumblebee, enjoying the ultimate transcendental pleasure in the charming forest that is the place where Sri Radha enjoys. So in his form as Tunga Vidya, he's an Astasaki, one of the Priya Sakis, Priya Nam Sakis, principal 8 Sakis of Sri Radhika, rendering so much service. And I just want to read one more because this one is very good. In all the 3 worlds, what men are not controlled by women? They who are not controlled are mostly men who hanker for fame, but some may be seen who are great saints, untouched by material desires, and whose company makes the material desires of others fall away. O intelligent reader, if you have no desire to awaken the material benefits that sleep in your hand, reside peacefully in Vrindavan. So this is the meditation that Prabodhananda Saraswati was absorbed in so deeply within the groves of Kamyavan initially, before he came at the end of his life to Vrindavan, where we have just reached now. We've reached his Samadhi. So he also gave us the Sri Krishna Chandramrita, and he gave us the Radha Rasa Sudhanidhi, such a beautiful meditation and sweet contemplation of Radha and Krishna's most intimate pastimes, and the Sangeet Madhav. So these are just some of the books that we have from the fruit of Srila Prabodhananda Saraswati. So we come to this beautiful, rich personality, and we beg at his lotus feet today for his kripa to give us that vision, to give us that enthusiasm initially, and then to give us the vision of Aprakat Vrindavan, which is always present. The most powerful thing in this Dham of Vrindavan is the dust itself. The dust itself is where all the saints and all these glorious personalities have walked 5,000 years ago and continued to walk since then, the Goswamis, etc. So the dust is the most precious object of this Vrindavan Dham. So today we've come to this Prabodhananda Saraswati's Samadhi, and we can roll in the dust in front. It's a very beautiful, small mandir with just his Samadhi in the center. And just on the right of the Samadhi is a small ashram, which still follows his teachings. We would call them perhaps Babajis today, but they are immersed in the writings and so on of Srila Prabodhananda Saraswati. It's interesting that Prabodhananda Saraswati didn't appear to associate extensively with Rupa and Sanatan. He would see them from time to time. We don't hear about him sitting in the assemblies with Raghunath Bhatta and Raghunath Das, etc. later on. So it seemed like it appears that he was an extremely reclusive personality and just wrote so much copiously during his life, giving us all these remarkable scriptures for our meditation. So Srila Prabodhananda Saraswati Thakur, Ki Jai. So we're most fortunate to have touched this personality, even slightly today. Just remember his great gift to the world through his compassionate nature. Now, right beside Prabodhananda Saraswati is Kaliya Hrida, the lake where we celebrate this remarkable pastime of Kaliya being chastised by Krishna. So this lake was originally attached or a part of the Jamuna. The current didn't actually flow through this lake. This lake was huge. This lake is 8 miles wide, and it's connected to the Jamuna, but the current from the Jamuna doesn't flow through this very poisonous lake. So the pastime is that Kaliya originally resided in Ramanaka, and his brother is Garud. So they have different mothers. The mother of Kaliya is Kadru, and the mother of Garud is Vinata. And they are both wives of Kashyapa. Kashyapa had 4 wives, and these are 2 of his wives. So Kadru is described as being very cantankerous person, in fact, quarrelsome. And she would quarrel with her co-wife, Vinata. And as a result of that quarrel, there was animosity between the 2 sons of these wives. The son of Kadru was Kaliya, and the son of Vinata was Garuda. So they inherited something of an animosity due to their mother's differences of opinions. And there's a pastime, very beautiful pastime that Srila Gurudev tells. It's a longer pastime. I'm not going to tell that pastime today. But in principle, the conclusion of that pastime is that Vinata had to become submissive to Kadru. She had to become submissive as a maidservant to her as a result of she was cheating, in fact, Kadru, and she cheated Vinata. And so when Kadru's son, Kaliya, was residing in Ramanaka, he would have to appease Garud, because Garuda was in fact more powerful than Kaliya. Kaliya was a ferocious serpent with 101 principal heads and thousands of smaller heads. But he was ferocious and very, very envious personality. And once Garud, he smashed him with his wing in battle with him, so to speak. And Kaliya, he fled from Ramanaka to take shelter of the Jamuna, because in the Jamuna, in this particular place, was one sadhu called Shubhara Rishi. And he was meditating there in the waters of the Jamuna. And in his meditation, he was aware of all the fish life, etc. And one time Garuda came there and he took one of the fish from that lake. And this greatly upset and disturbed the resident fish of that lake. So Shubhara Rishi, he cursed Garuda. Garuda, of course, is the principal carrier of Sri Vishnu. So to curse the carrier of Vishnu is a very serious aparad, in fact. So for this curse, we'll see what actually consequently happened. But Garuda, he was cursed that if you come into this lake again and take any fish again, then you will leave your body. So Garuda, he knew of this curse, even though this curse couldn't have actually affected him, because Garuda is an eternal associate of the Lord, being his character, his carrier. So he knew that curse wouldn't actually affect him, but still he honored Shubhara Rishi. So Kaliya, he was residing in that lake. And that lake, as I say, was connected to the Jamuna, but it wasn't actually, the water, the current wasn't flowing through the lake. In Australia, they call them billabongs, where the river goes by, and off to the side, there's like a lake. It's a side aspect to the river. So this large lake, 8 miles across, was where Kaliya was residing. And that lake was so poisonous. It was like boiling. The waters of it were boiling with the venom spitting from the mouths. There's so many mouths of the serpent Kaliya. And even a bird flying over that lake would just fall down dead into the lake. And it's described all the trees around the proximity were all completely dead because of the fumes from that lake. Except there was one particular Kadamba tree, huge, very ancient Kadamba tree. And this had been touched when Garuda was carrying a pot of immortal nectar from Swaga. And one drop of this immortal nectar touched the tree of this Kadamba tree. And so this Kadamba tree was still flourishing. And this Kadamba tree was praying and hoping for one day to have the mercy of the lotus feet of the Lord climb upon its limbs. So coming back to our pastime, Balaram Ji, today was his birthday. So the season is very hot season. It's in August. Balaram Jayanti happens in August, the appearance day of Balaram. And or late July sometimes, it depends. And he had been telling Krishna for a long time, don't go to Kaliya Hrida. You must not go to that lake because there's such a ferocious demon there that just let him be. He's so envious. And Krishna had also allowed that demon to remain because he knew of the devotion of Kaliya's wives, the Nagapatnis. Kaliya's wives were extraordinarily devoted to Krishna. They knew who Krishna was. They were devoted to him. And they were always complaining to their husband about his sinful ways. They were Dharma Patnis. They were Nagapatnis is what they're called. But and there's beautiful prayers that we'll talk about in a minute that they recite to Krishna. But these Nagapatnis were extremely devoted. So Krishna acknowledged their devotion and didn't go and chastise their husband Kaliya. So Baladev, he had warned Krishna not to go to this lake repeatedly. So today is Balaram Jayanti, Balaram's birthday. So Mother Rohini had kept Balaram at home. And then Krishna, he's out with the cowherd boys. And of course, the first thing he does and thinks about, oh, now Balaram is not here. Now I'll go to that Kaliya Hrida. So then he steered the cows towards that Kaliya Hrida, which were coming from Nandgaon. So try to get the geography here from those maps that I showed. Nandgaon is just on the other side of Govardhan. And it seems like it's a long way to come. But of course, we know the dynamic of Braj is that it can expand and contract at will just to accommodate all the Leelas. So it's perhaps today the distance between Kaliya Hrida and Nandgaon, where Krishna came from with the cows, because at this time, Krishna's age is in his Poganda age. Krishna is not a child anymore. He's not Balya Leela. In this age now, he's Poganda. His chest has become broader, his feet are larger, etc. He's left his childhood body, so to speak, behind. And his relationship at this time also with the gopis has become ignited. This has actually begun even at this time. So Krishna, he comes with all the cows, and they come in the proximity of Kaliya Hrida, and it's a very hot day in the middle of summer practically. And all the cowherd boys, they run ahead with the cows, and they run to the poisoned waters of this Kaliya Hrida, and they drink the waters, the cows and the cowherd boys, and they all immediately fall unconscious on the banks of this poisonous lake. And Krishna arrives a few moments later, and to his great unhappiness, he sees all his most dearly beloved eternal associates, his friends, have all apparently left their bodies due to drinking this poisonous water. So Krishna casts his nectarian glance over all of them, and they all become gradually revived. And Jiva Goswami describes at this time, Krishna goes to each particular boy, and he embraces each particular cowherd boy for a long, long time, very, very lovingly. And he also embraces all the cows. It's described that Krishna actually expands his body, even though this is beyond Naralila, but he expands his body unseen to any of the other cowherd boys and embraces all the cowherd boys very, very lovingly and rejuvenates their life. And the same with the cows also. But then he decides, now is the time to chastise this Kaliya Naga. Now I've had enough. So he tightens his belt, and of course he sees this beautiful, large, ancient Kadamba tree, which I think maybe we have a picture of that tree. Manjulali, we can see. Perhaps if you kept that tree, we can actually see this tree today.
This one?
Yes. Yes, okay. If you zoom in, you can see that tree, just the tree. Yes. I thought we had another one, sort of a closer of just the tree, but that's a pretty good one. So the little gazebo in front, that's just near, that's part of the ornamentation of Kaliya Hrida, but just behind that is Prabodhananda Saraswati, where we've just been. So now this is the tree that we're going to be sitting under, hearing this pastime. This is where we all sit down and we hear this pastime regularly with all the devotees every single year. So that tree was flourishing due to the drop of nectar that Garuda left there. So Krishna, he climbs that tree very quickly, and he tightens his belt and he pulls his hair back and he ties it together like that. And then he begins to slap his arms like a wrestler about to engage in a sportive wrestling. And then Krishna, he plunges into this lake. Now he's told the cowherd boys before he dives into the lake, you all please stand right back. He chases them all back, about a few hundred yards away from the lake, because he knows what's going to happen when he dives in. Krishna is carrying the entirety of the Brahmand within his abdomen. When he dives into this lake, all these towering waves manifest and overflow the banks. These poisonous waters overflow the banks. So he's cautioned the cowherd boys to stand right back so that they won't be caught again in the poisonous waters. And then Krishna, in great joy, he begins to splash on the surface of the water. He begins to swim around, and using the flat of his hands, he's smacking the water, creating all sorts of musical, beautiful sounds. And he's dancing practically with his hands on the water. And of course, this is totally agitating to Kaliya, who's in the very depths of this lake. And when he is aware that there's an intruder in his lake, he can't believe this. He's astonished, and he comes roaring out of the depths of that lake, and he sees for a moment the absolute beauty of Krishna. He sees his beautiful yellow dhoti, he sees his beautiful lotus-like face, he sees his beautiful lotus-like eyes, he sees his beautiful form. In other words, he has a moment to embrace with affection the Lord, but no, his cruel, shocking nature completely overpowers him. And he reaches forward with his fangs, and with his fangs of his manhood, he bites Krishna on the chest, and he wraps him immediately in his coils. And Krishna is being very submissive here. Krishna is performing a wonderful pastime for the residents of Vrindavan to get great joy and pleasure from eventually. But this is how the pastime is unfolding. So Krishna is wrapped in these coils of this ferocious naga, this ferocious serpent. And the cowherd boys are just speechless. They absolutely can't speak anything. And the cows also are just totally shocked. And the cowherd boys, they lose consciousness in anxiety about what is happening to Krishna. They're just confused about what's happening to Krishna. And at this time, the demigods, whose faith is not absolute, that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, as we see in many, many leelas, like when Krishna goes to ask for a parijat flower from Indra, after he's just heard Indra's piteous apology for trying to drown the residents of Vrindavan when Krishna lifts Govardhan Hill. And he's heard Indra's prayers begging forgiveness. And then a week later or so, Krishna goes and asks for a parijat flower, and Indra doesn't give it to him. So the demigods, they're not totally 100% their nishta that Krishna is that Supreme Lord. They're not fixed in that. Actually, it's described that the spiritual master of the Devas, he's Brihaspati, and Brihaspati is described as being Brahman realized. This is how Bhagavatam describes, Srila Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur describes that Brihaspati is Brahman realized. So therefore, what to speak of all the residents of Swaga? If the spiritual master of Swaga is proclaimed to be like a Brahmavad, Brahma realized, this means he hasn't got his meditation across the Viraja River. So the residents of Swaga are the same. So when they see Krishna wrapped in these coils of Kaliya, they're not sure that Krishna is going to be able to defeat him alone. So the demigods at this time, they manifest 3 types of very inauspicious omens to the villagers in Nandagan, to all the Brijvasis in Nandagan who are just about to celebrate the feast for Daubaya. Balaram is just about to have his birthday feast, so to speak. And they're all just about to sit down and take this huge feast in honor of Balaram. Rohini has arranged. And at that time, the demigods, they manifest earthquakes within the region of Nandagan. And they manifest meteorites falling through the sky. And they manifest the left sides of the men to be shivering. Now, all of these omens are considered most inauspicious. So immediately these omens are manifested to the Brijbasis. The only thing they think of, oh, something must have happened to Krishna, our very life and soul. And they immediately stand up from that feast they were just about to begin to take. And Balaram, of course, who knows the omnipotency of his great brother, he smiles to the Brijbasis at that time to try to pacify them, because they become most agitated, thinking that, just imagining how they could possibly live if anything happens to Krishna, because previously many demons had actually come. There'd been Bakasura, Trinavrata, Putana, Shakatasura, all of these different, the Agasura demon, all of these different demons had manifested, but the Brijbasis themselves had never actually seen any of these demons. The cowherd boys had seen these demons, but the Brijbasis, they hadn't ever witnessed these demons before. So when these inauspicious omens manifested, immediately every man, woman, and child immediately jumped up and started to run, following the hoof prints of the cows. Where had they gone that day? And amongst the millions of cow hoof prints, they could see, with their great affection for Krishna, the beautiful lotus-like footprints of Krishna, with his chakra, his barley corn, etc., all the most auspicious marks on Krishna's feet. They could just see those with their devotion to Krishna. It's described like a yogi who's so focused on his path, he's not looking at anything else distracting from his conclusion of his bhajan. So all of the Brijbasis were like this. They were just focusing on Krishna's footprints, disregarding all the millions of cow footprints. And they followed, and they came, of course, to Kaliyahrida. And there, to their horror, they saw Krishna wrapped in these mighty, powerful, huge coils of Kaliya. Their little boy, they were just more than shocked. And then they could see the cowherd boys, because they asked the cowherd boys what happened. The cowherd boys couldn't speak. They were in too much shock. And they could see the cows also were just in such a state of shock. And then, of course, immediately the cowherd men, Upananda, Abhinanda, etc., they tried to enter the lake. But Balaram, he, knowing the potency of his brother, he widened his arm and he stopped them. He checked them from entering the lake. And he gave them such a moon-like smile and told them, don't you remember what Garga Rishi said? That this child Krishna will have great powers and will always protect you. Why are you so afraid? But the Brijbasis, they became overwhelmed in anxiety. And what to speak of Mother Yashoda? She fell down like a cow for her lost calf. It's described, grieving piteously, and just fainted. And when Krishna realized the separation mood that all of the Brijbasis were experiencing at that moment, then he decided, now I cannot let my darling Brijbasis suffer any more anxiety. Then he began to expand his body within the coils of Kaliya. Krishna actually stays within the coils of Kaliya. It's described for a single muhurta, which is 48 minutes. So all of this that I've just been describing takes place in 48 minutes. Krishna is wrapped in these coils, which is a considerable time. That's practically an hour. He was giving Kaliya this mercy of his residing in his coils. And then Krishna expands his body. And by his expanding his body, it feels intolerable to Kaliya. And he can't contain Krishna any longer. And he has to release him. Then suddenly Krishna comes back to his original size and jumps out of the coils. And meanwhile, while Krishna has been in these coils, there's an island right in the center of this Kaliyahrida, in the center of this lake, this 8-mile lake. There's an island And Kaliya has sort of shifted across to that island while he's held Krishna tightly within his coils. And now Krishna jumps out of the coils and he starts running around and around Kaliya. Kaliya has 1,000 hoods. And with all his 1,000 hoods, he's trying to bite Krishna, but he can't catch him. Krishna is running so fast like lightning, just like when he fights with that elephant in Mathura, Kubaliyapida. He runs between that great elephant's feet and he just runs around and around. And Kaliya becomes more and more dizzy, more and more frustrated. And when Kaliya becomes exhausted, practically his poison is becoming exhausted by trying to catch and chase Krishna, then Krishna, to the astonishment of everyone, he pushes one of Kaliya's prominent hoods down and he jumps on that hood of Kaliya. And then he kicks that hood. And remember, I said previously to appreciate that Krishna is holding all the Brahmans, the weight, not just of this universe, this planet where we are, but all the Brahmans in existence. Unlimited billions of Brahmans are within the abdomen of Krishna. So when he kicks, we cannot imagine the power of that kick on the head of Kaliya. And of course, Kaliya is just like, his head's crushed by this kicking. And then Krishna, he sees the gopis on the banks. The gopis, previously, they had just gone into a void-like condition of consciousness. Some Purvarag had just begun to awaken in the hearts of the gopis. It's described by Jiva Goswami. And their affection, seeing towards Krishna, had really become very romantic, completely in a mood of madhurya. They had begun to consider, how can this beautiful boy become our paramour? They had begun to think like this. So Krishna was aware of their glances. So then he wanted to demonstrate the expertise of his dancing. So he begins to dance on these broad hoods of Kaliya. And each time he goes from one hood to the next, he kicks it with such a powerful, crushing blow that Kaliya, his brain is becoming knocked out. And then Krishna, he's called Natavara. Natavara means the master of dance. Shivji is Nata Raj. Shivji is the king of dance, but Krishna is the master of dance. The master of dance is actually greater than the king of dance. So Krishna begins to demonstrate his dancing accomplishments, and he begins to dance in a most phenomenal way. And he takes out his flute and he starts to play. And all the Gandharvas and the Siddhas and the Charanas and the Kinnaras, they all come and they play this beautiful music to accompany Krishna dancing. But it's described by Kavi Kanpur in his Ananda Vrindavan Champur that the demigods, they can't keep up with the beat that Krishna is demanding while he's dancing so energetically across these hoods of Kaliya's heads. They can't, and eventually they just stop trying to play their music and accompany him and just end up by just clapping in appreciation of Krishna's dance and the music that he's producing. I mean, we can just imagine this phenomena happening in front of all the Brijbasis. And remember, I said before that the Brijbasis have never ever seen a demon attacked by Krishna directly. They've never seen this before. This is the first time they're seeing Krishna attacking and chastising a demon. So after some time, Kaliya becomes totally weakened by these crushing blows from the lotus feet of Sri Krishna. Krishna's feet have become illuminated by the jewels on the head, the red jewels on the heads of this Kaliya Naga. So his feet and his whole body are illuminated like this. We can imagine just what an amazing sight this must have been for the Brijbasis but particularly the gopis. The gopis, they were witnessing like this because Krishna was dancing and he was sending a message to them. Soon you and I will dance together like this. He was sending this message directly to the gopis. The gopis' hearts were becoming exhilarated. I mean, what greater hero can you have than performing a pastime of this caliber? This is just inconceivable, astonishing. So when Kaliya's life was just about to be expired from this heavy, brutal kicking of Krishna's lotus feet on his hoods, smashing all the life out of him, now his poison had stopped and only vomit was coming out of all his serpent-like mouths, and his eyes were profusely watering. Everything was just coming out of this serpent, and he was dying. And at this point, Kaliya, he remembers the constant instructions from his dharmic wives, the Nagapatnis, who had told him repeatedly about the power of the personality of Rajendranandan Shyam Sundar, Shri Krishna. And Kaliya begins to think, this must be none other than Krishna. No one else could do like this. And then at that point, he starts the journey of submission internally in his heart. He starts to become surrendered. Because remember, it's very difficult for such a wicked, evil-minded, brutally powerful person to become surrendered. So he has to go through a process mentally to become surrendered to Krishna. So he's going through this process while Krishna was dancing. And then he's just about to leave his body, but he's surrendered to Krishna now. Now he's surrendered to Krishna. And his good wives, the Nagapatnis, they can see in his eyes, they can see that now he's become submissive to Krishna. And they want to save his life now, because now they can see that now our husband can become a pure Vaishnava. He's received the dust of the lotus feet of the Lord on his head. And now, if we can save his life, that is our dharmic duty. So the Nagapatnis, it's described, they come forward. They put their children in front of him to petition Krishna. Krishna, as I said previously, has known about the devotion of the Nagapatnis. So when the Nagapatnis begin their beautiful prayers to Krishna, Krishna listens. He stops kicking and he listens to their petition and their prayers. And there's 23 beautiful verses in the Srimad Bhagavatam, in this chapter, describing these prayers. One time in Bhaja, my Gurudev was telling us about the beauty and speciality and sweetness of these prayers. He was at that particular time translating. He was rewriting the translations of the commentary of the 10th canto, and he was immersed in these prayers of the Nagapatnis, and he was explaining to us how beautiful and rich and wealthy they are in devotion. Devotion is the principal quality that we are seeking in our lives. So any opportunity to hear the sweetest prayers of devotion, we are so much wanting to hear that. And Krishna also is so attracted by devotional prayers and hymns in the most sincere way, if they're presented nicely like that. So Krishna is listening to the petition, the pitiful petition. It must have been a very dramatic time. Kaliya, this enormous serpent, is just like smashed all over this island, blood and so on. And the wives are coming forward with their hair in disarray, etc., in a completely distraught way, begging, petitioning Krishna to please release their husband and save his life. Krishna listens to their prayers and petitions, and then he climbs down from Kaliya. He climbs down from Kaliya, and he stands beside Kaliya, and he responds to the Nagapatnis, and he says, yes, now your husband has been chastised. And Kaliya, at this time, wants to actually offer pranam and prayers to the Lord, but his body is so crushed and defeated by Krishna's lotus feet that he can't practically even move. Yet he's able to say some words of submission to Krishna. Krishna hears those important words of submission, and he, with his hand, he touches the body of Kaliya, and immediately all of Kaliya's injuries, etc., are completely cured, and he becomes whole and strong again at that time. Because Krishna knows he's been chastised from the core of his heart, and now he's a devotee, he's a Vaishnava at this time. And then he strongly commands Kaliya that you return to Ramanaka, which is where you came from previously. It's an island near Fiji. You return there, and Garuda will never come and obstruct you again, because he'll see the marks of my feet, my lotus feet on your hoods, and he'll never come and attack you again. And at this time, the Nagapatnis, they seat Krishna on a beautiful seat, and they put beautiful creams and ointments all over his body, because he was 48 minutes in the waters of Jamuna, and he became cold somewhat. So all his body, Krishna's body, is invigorated by these ornaments, these creams, etc. And then they ornament Krishna with beautiful jewels and so on. And while this battle was actually going on, Krishna's Kaustubha money came off his neck and somehow or other came back into the treasury of Kaliya. So when the Nagapatnis were decorating Krishna with so many jewels and earrings, etc., they placed again this Kaustubha money on Krishna's neck. So meanwhile, of course, all the Brijvasis, they're watching this amazing pastime unfolding. And then finally, when Kaliya is banished back to Ramanaka, and he has to leave immediately, Krishna won't tolerate waiting for a single moment, but just immediately leave with all his retinue and family and children, etc., and leave that lake instantly. And at the very moment that Kaliya and all his wives, etc., leave that lake, immediately, by Krishna's mercy, all of that lake is totally purified, and its waters are back to that pristine, pure condition that they were originally. And all the trees on the banks of that lake come back to life again. And then Krishna returns to the bank of the Jamuna there. And of course, the Brijvasis are just overwhelmed to have their Lala, their darling child, back in their midst. And they just embrace him so much. And first of all, of course, Mother Yashoda, she just runs unrestrainedly up to him. So all the other ladies, the older ladies, they all come and embrace Krishna. But Nanda Baba, who's usually reserved in front of all the women, he pushes himself through the crowd of ladies and immediately grabs Krishna with such affection. And they begin to examine all his body to make sure that there's no bites or bruises or any blemish whatsoever. And Balaram, he also follows his dear father Nanda Baba through, and he also just embraces Krishna for a long time, it's described. And then they all begin examining his body very carefully. But it's such a joyous reunion. So from the separation practically to the reunion. So these are the pastimes that Krishna is arranging in Braj for the quality of the Brijvasis' powerful affection to manifest fully. When there's extreme danger, of course, the individuals, their mood and their attraction for their object of affection just increases more and more. So this pitch of affection for Krishna had reached such a height during this pastime. And then we know the rest of this pastime, that it becomes somewhat late, and they decide that they will spend the night there. And that night, a servant of Kamsa, he arranges for a forest fire to actually come, because the Brijvasis are so tired and exhausted from this extreme emotional involvement they felt through this pastime and seeing this horrendous demon, Kaliya, etc., chastised, and they're all just really exhausted from the whole pastime. And they just move up a little bit to a beautiful, clean, fresh, sandy beach, and they all remain there for the evening, for the night. And in this particular night, which was Krishna's desire, the gopis are away from their usual guardians, etc. So Krishna is able to make a connection with the gopis. Srila Gaura Govinda Maharaj, he describes very much this pastime. At this point, Krishna is able to familiarize himself with the gopis in a very intimate way. And actually, all the gopis see at this particular evening that Krishna is most inclined to Shri Radhika, because the next day there's a whole pastime where Chandravali tries to hijack Krishna before this relationship with Radhika is going to become too full-blown. So that's another whole pastime that Kavi Kanpur describes. But the next morning, they all go back to the village, and miraculously, every single preparation that was laid out to celebrate Balaram's appearance day is still fresh and hot. And all the Brijvasis, they sit down with great joy and they relish that beautiful feast that had been maintained by Vrinda Devi's potency in the forest there. She had maintained the quality of that prasadam. So that was the conclusion of that remarkable pastime. But the joy and the festivity and the emotions and the mood and the grandeur and the color is what that pastime holds. And Kalia, he requests that one request he asks for Krishna, one benediction, that this pastime be sung eternally in all the worlds. And Krishna grants that benediction. So this pastime we sing and chant every first day of our walking parikrama. So Kaliya Hrida ki jai, Srila Gurudev ki jai, Vanchakalpa Tarubhyascha, Kripa Sindhuvevacha, Patitanam Pavnebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namaha.
Maharaji, Dandavats.
Dandavats, Shara.
Sorry,
Yes.
I joined late because of my appointment. And forgive me if you've already covered this, but can you remind us what anarta, Bhaktivinoda Thakur wrote about the anartas cleared by, not symbolized, but the anartas that are cleared by meditating on these demon pastimes. Can you remind us which one this is?
Brutality and a wicked, devious, deceptive mentality. That's how Bhaktivinoda Thakur. There's one file that I think you already have, which is from Bhaktivinoda Thakur's Krishna Samhita. And he lists in there all the different anartas of all the demons. And we can send you a file of that and you can see all the different demons. But this particular anarta of brutality and wickedness and deceptiveness is what Krishna is confronting. But we should always remember, Yashoda-ji, that Srila Gurudev would never linger on these particular anartas very much. Many times we would speak and then we would be all ready to go right into the whole anarta. And Gurudev would just say, thank you, sit down. He didn't really want to hear a distraction away from the moods of the Brijvasis and their affection, you know, which is generated from these powerful demons that have the audacity to enter Krishna's realm of Vrindavan. Anyway, that's...
Yeah, because Gurudev's always focusing on the positive, and he knows that if we have attraction to the positive, it will burn away then the anartas naturally without having to get too entangled in the psychology of the anartas, right?
Yes. The beauty and sweetness of the Madhurya Ras that manifests is far more important than the actual anartas ultimately. But still, Yashoda Prabhu, Bhaktivinoda Thakur took the trouble to write all these down in his Krishna Samhita. It's still, a fascinating aspect of the Vrindavan Leela. So that is the Kaliya Krida pastime. Thank you, Yashoda. You look cold. My God. It's boiling here. Got the AC going. Fan on.
No, I'm not cold. I'm snug.
Oh, snug. Okay. So thank you. So now it's Pujapad Nemi Maharaj is going to take us to a most wonderful meditation on Sanatana Goswami. I've been meditating in these chapters of the Madhya Leela, 5 chapters Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Krishna's Kaviraj dedicates just to Sanatana Goswami. It's described that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had such affection for Sanatana Goswami, remarkable. It really comes out in the pages of the Chaitanya Charitamrita. So now we're going to walk out of the Kaliya Hrida place and we're going to walk up the street a little bit and we're going to come to the amazing temple of Madan Mohan, which is of course inspired by Sanatana Goswami, and we're going to go to the Samadhi of Sanatana Goswami. So now our beloved Pujapad Srila Nemi Maharaj is going to give us all the goods on Sanatana Goswami. Jai Ho.
Maharaj, oh, I need to unmute you. Okay, you should be able to unmute now. Yes, very well.
Yantimirandhasya Yananjanashlakaya Chakshuramilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Namam Vishnupadaya Krishna Pristaya Putale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namane. Namam Vishnupadaya Radhikaya Priyatmane Shri Srimad Bhaktivedanta Narayaniti Namane. Namam Vishnupadaya Gaura Pristaya Bhutale Shri Srimad Bhaktivedanta Bharati Iti Namane. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripasindubhyavacha putitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Gadadhar Shivasti Shiva Bhaktivedanta. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare. Hare Rama Ram Rama Hare. Bande Rupa Sanatana Raghujigo Shri Jiva Gopalako. So we've heard this fascinating pastime at Kaliyashrada. And after that, as Pujapad Chidandi Maharaj mentioned, so Krishna felt a little cold. So he went out, then as we go down on the Parikrama marg, the Parikrama path between Gopinath Bhavan, which is right on the Parikrama path, and Kaliyashrada, which is also on the Parikrama path. So maybe midway, there's quite a tall hill, and on top of the hill is the old Madan Mohan temple. And this place is called Dashadvit Tila. Dwadasha Aditya Tila. So on that hill, Krishna came up there, and to warm him up, the sun god expanded into 12 different expansions of the sun. And he warmed Krishna up. And Krishna was perspiring so much. There was a pond at the bottom, which is not there now. So the connection here is that later on, Srila Sanatana Goswami came there with Madan Mohanji, and he performed his bhajan there, one of many places he performed his bhajan. Srila Sanatana Goswami, he's very important personality for us because he's Sambandha Acharya. Pujapad Chidandi Maharaj mentioned that Chaitanya Charitamrita, in Chaitanya Charitamrita, it's described how Lord Chaitanya met with Sri Sanatana Goswami at Kashi, and he spent 2 months instructing him on the process of devotional service and our relationship. So Sambandha means relationship, and it means basic principles also. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he explains Sambandha in Sri Chaitanya Shikshamrita. So he explains how Sambandha Gyan means knowledge of our relationship. Knowledge of basic principles means what is matter, what is spirit, who's the controller of both, what is the goal of life, what is the practice to attain the goal of life. So like this, there's 7 principles, Sambandha Gyan. And Srila Sanatana Goswami, he is in charge. He's the guardian of our relationship. So it's very appropriate that this is our first day of actual walking parikrama. And it's very appropriate that we're coming to Sri Sanatana Goswami's place of residence, place of bhajan, to find out about our relationship, not only find out about our relationship, but pray to him for knowledge and realization of our relationship with Krishna, but with transcendence in general. So Sanatana Goswami, for Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he's the emblem or the embodiment of humility. He's extremely competent person. He spoke, I don't know how many different languages, maybe 8 different languages, Sanskrit, Bengali, Parsi, Urdu, so many. And he was the prime minister under Nawab Hussain Shah. Nawab Hussain Shah had forced Rupa Goswami, Sanatana Goswami, and their brother Anupam. He'd forced them into service. Not that they wanted to serve the Muslims, not that they wanted to become rich, but somehow or other, Nawab Hussain Shah had found out that they're extremely intelligent. So Anupam was the treasurer, Rupa Goswami was personal secretary to Nawab Hussain Shah, and Srila Sanatana Goswami was prime minister. So, but at that time, it's not that they became Muslims. They were maintaining many Brahmanas and Vaishnavas also. They were fabulously rich. They heard about Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, wrote him a letter, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu announced that he was going to Vrindavan. And he came with many, many, many followers. He came to a place called Ramkeli, which is where Rupa Sanatan were living. And they came to him in deep humility. Such prominent personalities. They came in deep humility with straws in their teeth, sign of humility. But this is real humility. Sometimes devotees come with straws in their teeth, but their humility is not actually genuine. I've seen in front of Gurudev. There's one of our Russian devotees. He came in to offer obeisances to Gurudev. And then he gets up and he's got a bunch of straw in his mouth. Everyone cracked up. Gurudev also laughed like anything. But Rupa and Sanatan, they're really deep humility. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, even he was embarrassed. And they're praying, Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namna Gaurati She Namaha. You're the most munificent because you're giving Krishna Prem to the most unqualified. So Rupa and Sanatan, because they already have such intense love for Krishna. So Prem is a manifestation of love, and love is a manifestation, Prem is a manifestation of humility, and humility is a manifestation of Prem. So their humility is deep like an ocean. And it, what's that? Srila Bhakti Rakshak or somewhere, she says, he's comparing the love between, or the attraction between the Jiva and Krishna. He says it's like negative and positive. He's comparing it to like scientific negative, positive poles. So he said, in order to attract the positive, we have to develop this negative. What's the negative? It's humility. But there's a caution there. Humility doesn't mean to become totally depressed and think we're useless and black and fallen, because we see how, because of their humility, how Rupa and Sanatan, they were empowered by Lord Chaitanya to carry out the most amazing tasks, establishing the, finding the deities, establishing the pastime places, and writing about bhakti, establishing bhakti, and also establishing Vaishnava dharma, proper conduct of Vaishnavas. And similarly, my Guru Maharaj also, in his prayers at Boston, the ship when it was in Boston. So he's saying, I'm like a puppet. I don't know why I've come, but if you want me to dance, then make me dance, make me dance, make me dance. And because of that humility, Krishna empowered him, or Lord Nityananda empowered him to accomplish something absolutely inconceivable, amazing and inconceivable. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is the emblem of that humility, especially. Once they'd met with Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Mahaprabhu said actually that I told everybody I was coming to Vrindavan, but actually I only came to meet you. And Sanatana Goswami, he's like new to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He said, you know, it's not a good idea for you to go, you say that you're going to Vrindavan, but it's not a good idea for you to go with so many people because you'll destroy the dham and you'll destroy the mood of the dham. Better to go by yourself. And Chaitanya Maharaj, he reflected on that. So already Sanatana Goswami is advising the Supreme Personality Godhead. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was listening already, taking advice from him. So such an amazing personality. After that, they decided that they're going to give up their service to Nawab Hussain Shah. Rupa Goswami just quit. He gathered his belongings. He gathered 2 boatloads of gold. I don't know how big the boats were, but 2 boatloads of gold, and he distributed it to his family members and brahmanas, and then he left a large pile with a local grocer for Sanatana Goswami. For some reason, Sanatana Goswami is more diplomatic than Rupa Goswami, and he decided that he couldn't just leave the service of Nawab Hussain Shah, but he was going to have to make Nawab Hussain Shah angry. So he pleaded sick. He renounced his duties, and Nawab Hussain Shah felt that probably there's something going on here. So he sent a spy, and he found out Sanatana Goswami wasn't sick at all. He was reading Srimad Bhagavatam in a collection, in a assembly of Brahmanas and Vaishnavas. So he came himself. They all stood up because he's a manifestation. Even a wicked person like that, he's still a manifestation of the power of the Lord. So they stood up in respect. And then he said, look, I want to go and attack Orissa. So I need you to take care of my state. Sanatana Goswami said, no, I'm not going to do it anymore. And then they had an argument. And actually, Nawab Hussain Shah, he was angry and he put Sanatana Goswami in prison. I've seen a picture of the prison. He was in there for quite a long time. So meanwhile, Rupa Goswami, he'd sent men to Puri, and he told them that when Lord Chaitanya leaves for Vrindavan, so you immediately send news to me. So then he got the message that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had actually left for Vrindavan. Rupa Goswami sent a very enigmatic letter to Sanatana Goswami. He just a verse, and nobody reading that verse could understand what he meant. It was like, I heard that there was a famous quantum physicist, Niels Bohr, is Danish. So he was cooperating with the Germans. This is during the war. And Einstein just wrote him, he just wrote an equation to him. And Bohr understood. Nobody else would have understood. Bohr understood that, and he gave up, and I think maybe he left Denmark. Anyway, it's the same sort of thing. Nobody could understand the code. But Sanatana Goswami could understand that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was left for Vrindavan. So he decided, okay, now it's time to escape from prison. He called the jailer, and he said, I want to escape. So and then he started putting up the gold coins that Rupa Goswami had left him. So there was 7,000 gold coins. It's a lot of money. I mean, if we have 1 gold coin, I don't know how much it'd be worth. So 7,000. And the jailer was like, but when the Nawab comes, he'll kill me. And then Sanatana Goswami put up 10,000 gold coins. I mean, that's a pile. It's a big pile. And the jailer couldn't resist. So Sanatana Goswami said, look, you take off my shackles. And then when Nawab Hussain Shah, he said, I'm not going to stay around. He said, I'm going to Mecca on pilgrimage. Of course, he had no such intention. So he said, I'm going to Mecca. You tell Nawab Hussain Shah that when I went to Ganga for toilet business, I just jumped into the Ganga and nobody could find me after that. I'm going to disappear. There won't be any problem. And then he left. And he left with one servant, Ishan. And then they were traveling. He wanted to get to Vrindavan. So they had to go through that time, well, now, this huge forest, Jarikanda forest. So generally, Vaishnavas, they would go like south along the southern path and then up to Vrindavan. But Sanatana Goswami, he went straight through the forest, just like Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had also done. And on the way, there was an inn. And the innkeeper was very, very kind to them, very, very kind. And Sanatana Goswami, being a diplomat, he smelt a rat. He said to Ishan, Ishan, you got some money with you? And Ishan said, yeah. He said, actually, I've got 7 gold coins I was keeping for emergencies. And Sanatana Goswami said, you give that to the innkeeper now. So they gave it to the innkeeper. The innkeeper said, oh, this is really good. I knew you had the money, and I was going to kill you tonight to get the money. So anyway, you keep the money. Sanatana Goswami, no, I don't want it. It's death. So how did you know that I had money? So the innkeeper said, oh, I have an astrologer, and he told me that you have 8 gold coins with you. Sanatana Goswami said, I see. Then he called to Ishan. He said, Ishan, do you still have some money with you? And Ishan said, yeah, I still have 1 gold coin I was keeping as emergency. So Sanatana Goswami said, you take that gold coin, you go. And the innkeeper, actually, he showed him the path through Jarikanda. So Shri Sanatana Goswami, he came to Kashi. On the way, one city, somehow or other, his brother-in-law was looking from, I don't know, the roof of where he was living, and he saw Sanatana Goswami and recognized him. So he came down, he met him, and he gave him a very nice chadar quilt. So Sanatana Goswami continued on, and he came to Kashi. So Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he'd already been to Vrindavan. He'd spent some time in Vrindavan because the message took some time to arrive. He'd been in ecstasy in Vrindavan, traveled through the 12 forests of Vrindavan, and then he'd come out of Vrindavan. He'd gone to Prayag, and there he'd met with Rupa Goswami and Anupam. And he'd, in that ecstasy, he gave all that ecstasy, by transcendental arrangement. Rupa Goswami was the one who met him first in Prayag. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gave him everything. Ras, he totally empowered him. Rupa Goswami instructed him for 10 days at Prayag, Dasashramedika. And then he told Rupa Goswami, you have to go to Vrindavan now. And he continued, and he went to Kashi. So in Kashi, he was staying with Tapa Mishra or Chandrasekhar, though they were both there. So it was night. Sanatana Goswami, he found out where Lord Chaitanya was staying. And he came, and he was sitting outside. He didn't want to butt in. So he was just sitting outside and waiting. And inside the house, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu told the devotees that there's a Vaishnava out there, you bring him in. So they went out and looked around. No, there's no Vaishnava around. So they went in and said, no, there's nobody there. Mahaprabhu said, no, go out and have a look. So they went out and came back and said, there's just some Muslim beggar there. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, bring him in. So they brought Sanatana Goswami in. He's got beard, long hair, like Muslim, not at all like Vaishnava, and wearing Muslim clothes also, and this expensive chadar. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Sanatana Goswami, they embraced and were crying in ecstasy. And devotees are astounded. What's this? Some Muslim? What's going on? Because none of them knew Sanatana Goswami. They didn't know he was a prime minister, had been ex-prime minister. So Lord Chaitanya told them, so now you can shave him up, make him like a gentleman. And Srila Prabhupada, in the purport, he says, yes, we shave our hippie disciples up, get rid of that long hair and beards and stuff. And then, so he came back to Lord Chaitanya. Tapa Mishra offered him some nice cloth. And he said, no, you just give me an old dhoti. So he took the old dhoti and he tore it in half. And from that, he made some like Babaji Vaish and Kopin, like that. And then he came to Lord Chaitanya, but he still had this expensive cloth on, chadar. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was talking with him, but he was eyeing this cloth. And Sanatana Goswami could understand, nods as good as a wink. So he thought, okay, I've got to get rid of this. So he went down to Ganga And there was a Vaishnava washing his cloth, like old quilt. Sanatana Goswami says, can we exchange? So the Vaishnava thought he was making fun of him. He said, this is not appropriate. I'm just a poor man. I don't come here and make fun of me. Sanatana Goswami, no, I'm serious. I want to exchange my chadar for your chadar. Okay, he changed. Then he came back to Lord Chaitanya. He's got this old chadar. Lord Chaitanya, oh. He said, now your last material attachment is gone. He was very happy. And we know this pastime when our Gurudev was serving Srila Puri Maharaj at Ganga, and the Ganga took Srila Gurudev's lota away, which is one thing that he'd taken away with him from home. And Srila Puri Maharaj laughed. He said, oh, Ganga's taken away your last material attachment. And he would remember that every time they met. So Sanatana Goswami went to Vrindavan. That time, Rup Goswami had already left with Anupam. They wanted to go to Puri. Anupam passed away. Rup Goswami went to Puri, and there he met with Lord Chaitanya, and that's a whole gorgeous festival of amazing pastimes with Lord Chaitanya. And then after some time, Sanatana Goswami decided that he wanted to go to Vrindavan. He wanted to go to Puri to meet with Lord Chaitanya. So again, he went through Jarikanda, and on the way, he was drinking bad water, and he contracted some disease that created sores on his body, which they were oozing with kind of liquid. So he arrived in Puri in bad shape, physically. So he knew where Haridas Thakur was staying. So he went to visit Haridas Thakur, and Haridas Thakur invited him to stay here. And then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was coming every day to meet with Haridas Thakur and Sanatana Goswami. Gurudev said that Siddhabakul, the place where Haridas Thakur was staying, and where Rup Sanatana Goswamis, they also stayed. That's the most important place for us. Because Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself was coming, and he was like giving darshan of his important devotees. Haridas Thakur is Namacharya, and Rup Sanatana, they're the chief of the 6 Goswamis. Shri Sanatana Goswami had quite a rough ride, actually, with Sanatana Goswami there. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came, and he was embracing him, and then the liquid fluid from the sores, body sores that were going on Lord Chaitanya's body, and Lord Chaitanya was happy, and Sanatana Goswami was extremely unhappy. He decided, I'll have to throw, when Rath Yatra comes, I'll just throw myself under the wheels. And one day Sanatana Goswami came, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came, he said, Sanatana, you can't attain Radha Krishna by committing suicide. If I could do that, I would have committed suicide thousands of times. And then he said to Haridas Thakur, Haridas, this gentleman wants to destroy another person's property. Do you think this is good? And then he said to Sanatana, your body, it doesn't belong to you. You've submitted yourself to, your body is mine. And through that body, I'm going to perform so much service, writing Shastra and distributing them. So you have to take care of it. So it's a long succession of difficult situations for Sanatana Goswami. And in the end, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu asked him to come out to meet him on the beach. And to get there, he had a choice. Either he went past the temple, in which case he might have touched some of the priests and like that at the temple, or he went along the beach. Now the beach, this is hot season. You can't step on sand that time. I had one episode myself once. I walked out to Mansarovar from Vrindavan, and I started a bit late. And when I came back, it was blazing hot. I was literally jumping from one clod of earth to another. There's a lot of sand there. I was in real difficulty. So Sanatana Goswami, he was just meditating on Lord Chaitanya, and he just walked straight through the sand. His feet were blistered. And Lord Chaitanya's, when he met, he said, which way did you come? And he told him, he said, well, why did you come that way? Why didn't you come the other way? And Sanatana Goswami explained. And Lord Chaitanya embraced him. And then all his bodily ailments just disappeared. Chaitanya was so pleased with him. But after that, he was still discontented. He said, I can't see Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. I think best thing is if I go back to Vrindavan. I'm sorry, I think it might have been before that. Anyway, he said that maybe I should go back to Vrindavan. So he consulted with Jagadananda Pandit. Jagadananda Pandit had a very fiery relationship with Lord Chaitanya. They were old friends, like from childhood. They quarreled like mad. Prem Kara, quarrels in love. So Jagadananda Pandit said, yeah, it sounds like a good idea. You know, it's difficult for you here. Probably best thing is to go back to Vrindavan. It must have been while Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was still embracing him. So Sanatana Goswami went to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and he told him that, you know, I'm thinking I'll go back to Vrindavan because I can't have darshan of Lord Jagannath, and I'm contaminating your transcendental form when you embrace me. And, you know, I consulted with Jagadananda Pandit and he agreed also, probably best if I leave. So Mahaprabhu said, what? Jagadananda said to you, you should go back to Vrindavan? Call Jagai. It was his name, Jagai. Call Jagai. So Jagadananda. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was chastising him. He is a senior man. Sanatana is so senior man, very important disciple. You're giving him instruction. You're just a young boy. Chastising him like that. And Sanatana Goswami said, oh, he's so fortunate. You're giving him the nectar of your chastisement, and you're just giving me the bitter wormwood of your praise. And Lord Chaitanya was really embarrassed, because if he said, no, I genuinely mean it, then Sanatana Goswami would have become even more disconsolate. He was so humble. So in the end, Sanatana Goswami went back to Vrindavan. He was there with the other Goswamis, and he compiled many very important literatures, especially his Brihad Bhagavatamritam. Is the base. Srila Gurudev said it's the basis for all the other Goswami works. It's an amazing book in two halves. In the first half, Narada Muni is trying to find, he's looking for the devotee who has the most mercy from Krishna. And it ends up with an amazing pastime in Dwarka, where everybody is praising the gopis. And then after that, it's a conversation actually between Parikshit Maharaj and his mother Uttara. After Parikshit Maharaj has heard from Shukadeva Goswami. So after that, Uttara says, so what happens to the gopis and the Brajbasis? Where do they go? It's not fair if they go to the same places, Bhishma Dev and Queen Kunti, because their love is totally different. Because actually in her heart, this Braj Bhav is also awakening. And then in the second half, so Parikshit Maharaj explains step by step, goes through different places in the universe and outside, and they end up he ends up recounting about Goloka Vrindavan. So he's explaining, this is confidential knowledge. Nobody knew about Goloka Vrindavan at that time. They thought Vaikuntha is the last. So Srila Gurudev has produced this book, Going Beyond Vaikuntha. Nobody knew. So that's very important literature. And then very important pastime, when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came through, Sanatana Goswami came through, Sanatana Goswami came through Mathura. So he saw some boys playing. And one of them was very, very beautiful boy, very cheeky and naughty. And he cheated the others. And then when they protested, he just ran away and he ran into a temple. So Sanatana Goswami is really curious. And he went into the temple and there's nobody there, only the deity on the altar. And he sees this boy is actually Krishna. And he's living with a Brahmana, Chawe Brahmana, and his wife and a son. So Sanatana Goswami, he's in charge of regulated principles. So he goes to the house and he says, look, this boy is actually Krishna. He's the Supreme Lord. And he's watching how the wife is making khichdi. She gets up in the morning and she doesn't have time to take a bath because boys are hungry. So she's cleaning her teeth with one end of a toothpick and stirring the breakfast, whatever they're making, with the other end of the stick. And Sanatana Goswami is horrified. So he gives her a lecture on proper regulated principles. So the next day she gets up early, takes a bath, and she's cleaned all the pots, and she's not using that toothbrush to stir the breakfast prasadam anymore. And of course it's late. And the young boy's there. Hungry, we want breakfast. What's going on? Hey, come on. And Krishna's there also. I'm hungry. And Sanatana Goswami sees this and he says, oh. Actually, this, it doesn't matter about standards. Krishna wants that offering from her. So he goes to the woman, he says, all those directions I gave you yesterday, forget about the whole thing. Just forget it. Just look after them like they're doing. But Krishna says to Sanatana Goswami, I'm going to come with you now. You're going to Vrindavan. I'm coming with you. And Sanatana Goswami, no, you can't come. I can't take care of you. I'm just a Babaji. I don't have anywhere to live. I can't cook for you. You want nice things? And Krishna says, anyway, I'm coming. So they ended up on Dwadasha Dichatila, this hill again. And it's basic. It's basic. It's more basic than basic. Sanatana Goswami goes out begging, and basically he's just getting some flour. And then he puts water with the flour, rolls it up, and then he puts it on the fire, making dough balls. I've had it. We went to the Samadhi, and the Pandit there at the Samadhi, he gave some of those dough balls, baked dough balls, and they ain't tasty. It's plainer than plain. So one day, Madan Mohan, Krishna's Madan Mohan. It's important. So Madan is Cupid, Krishna's transcendental Cupid. And Madan Mohan, he's the one who bewilders Cupid. So actually Krishna can only bewilder Cupid when he's with Srimati Radhika. So we have three deities, Madan Mohan, Govinda, Gopinath. Madan Mohan, they're attracting us away from our rotten material pastimes to their beautiful Jayatang Surito Pango, Mama Mandamategati, Matsarasapadamboja, Radha Madana Mohana. You have such beautiful amorous pastimes. They're so beautiful. So may those beautiful amorous pastimes attract me away from these rotten so-called pastimes of myself in this material world. Then Govindaji, once we're attracted away, Govindaji, Radha Govinda, they engage us in service. And then Radha Gopinath means entering into most beautiful pastimes, Rasa Leela especially. So Madan Mohan said to Sanatan, can't you even get salt? These dough balls are not tasty at all. At least, can't you get some salt? Now, there's two ways of telling this, relating this pastime. One way is, Sanatana Goswami says, now you're asking for salt, then tomorrow you'll want sabji, and then the day after that you'll want some burfi as well. I can't do it, please be satisfied. And the other way is my Guru Maharaj's way. So he actually related this pastime, and then the devotees started laughing. And my Guru Maharaj was crying. He said, this is devotee. So Sanatana Goswami said, you please be satisfied. My service is so insignificant. I'm just a helpless old Babaji here on top of a hill in Vrindavan. And all I can offer you, I told you, all I can offer you is these dopals. You please be satisfied. I can't give you any more. Please accept my service. And my Guru Maharaj is crying. He says, this is devotee, this is Vaishnava. Always thinking that this service is so insignificant and praying that Krishna will kindly accept. Anyway, there's a happy ending there because sometime after that, a ship got stuck in Yamuna. Well, you know, if you know Vrindavan, you know, Yamuna flows just close to Madan Mohan. And it's a salt merchant ship. So the salt merchant inquires around the locals and they say, well, if you want a miracle, there's an old Baba up there on top of the hill. You can go there and ask him. He may be able to help you. So he came up to Sanatana Goswami, offered obeisances, explained the situation. I've got this boat full of salt and it's stuck. So can you help me? And Sanatana Goswami said, well, you can go and pray to Madan Mohan. He wanted salt, so he may help you. So he's offering obeisances to Madan Mohan, and the ship got free. And then the salt merchant is so grateful that he built this huge, beautiful, beautiful temple there, which subsequently the Muslims ravaged, defiled. But actually, after I think it's 500 years, even if something has been ravaged by the Muslims, still it can be used again. So in principle, they could start worship of Madan Mohan there. But of course, the original Madan Mohan is in Karoli. And that's another pastime, which I don't really have time to relate now. And then there's Pratibhu deities down in just below the old Madan Mohan temple. So there's a new Madan Mohan temple. But anyway. So Madan Mohan is attracting us from our material pastimes towards transcendental pastimes. And Sanatana Goswami, he's the guardian and the warden of Sambandhagyan. And without Sambandhagyan, we can't make any progress at all. None. So we're totally dependent. At every step, we're actually dependent. So we're totally dependent on the mercy of Sri Radha Madan Mohanji and Sri Sanatana Goswami Ji. So on this auspicious day, like his samadhi is below the hill, nicely kept, and there's a grunt samadhi there as well, discarded gruntas, manuscripts like that they kept there, and so many samadhis there of Vaishnavas. Very, very beautiful place. So praying at the lotus feet of Sri Sanatana Goswami, praying to Sri Radha Madan Mohan, that they'll kindly give us this Sambandhagyan so that we can advance from our position of intense, age-long attachment to matter and all our so-called material possessions and our so-called material moods and attachments and everything, that we'll be able to, just like in that prayer that Sri Prabodhananda Saraswati Thakur was praying, that we'll be able to let go of those things so that be prepared to let go of them, open up to the mercy of our acharyas, and they will give us this beautiful grace whereby we can actually develop loving attachment for Guru, Gauranga, Radha Krishna, and all these other things will just fall away. Hare Krishna, Vanchakalpa Tarubhishcha Kripa Sindhuvya Putitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much, Maharaj, for relating these beautiful pastimes. I had heard that story about the salt, but I'd never heard it in that mood. That was Srila Prabhupada who was saying it in that way. Yeah.
My Guru Maharaj and Srila Prabhupada.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you
Hare
for
Krishna.
relating these pastimes. Thank you, Maharaj. I hope you're able to attend many of the Parikram days. So we're now returning back to Pujapad Jadandi Maharaj for the last leg of today's Parikram, where we will be going to Ashtasakhi Mandir. Should be able to unmute yourself. Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Tarunji. Thank you. Thank you so much for that beautiful guitar. Srila Pujapad Nemi Maharaj, that was absolutely relishable. He unpacked all of the details from top to bottom of those beautiful pastimes and the character and nature of that most wonderful person. So Sanatan Goswami Pad Ki Jai. So as we come out of the temple of Madan Mohan, then we go down to our left, down a little incline, and we come to a street, and we go up to the right towards Banka Bihari Mandir. And just before we reach there, we come to one mandir called the Astasakhi Mandir. So it's not actually written on the schedule sheet, but every year we always go there right at the very end of our parikrama. Just in front, before we get there, there's Advaita Bhat. And then really close by is the Astasakhi Mandir. So I'm offering all my Dandavat pranams to my beloved Gurudev and to Sachinandan Gaurahari to please be able to say something of value about this wonderful mandir. This mandir recently has been totally renovated inside, and it's very, very beautiful to appreciate and witness. It has all new dioramas around and has very beautiful deities of the Astasakhis themselves. There's Lalita Devi, Vishaka, of course, are the central deities. And then there is Chitra, Champakalata, Tunga Vidya, as we've already described today, who is Prabodhananda Saraswati. And then there's Induleka, Sudevi, and Rangadevi. These 8 Sakhis, Champakalata, didn't mention her name too. So we are appreciating the identities of these personalities. Sri Radhika, when Krishna manifests that Swarup Shakti, of course, Sri Radhika is eternal, so there's never a manifestation, but it's described this way for us conditioned souls, that when Krishna manifests Swarup Shakti, Sri Radhika, she wants to only just render service completely to Sri Krishna. And she understands Krishna as being the Raso Vaisa. His capacity to experience and taste rasa is unlimited. So Radhika, she wants to reciprocate with that unlimited receptivity that Krishna has. So she manifests these 8 principal Sakhis. And then from these 8 principal Sakhis, each of those Sakhis, they manifest another 8 Sakhis. And then those Sakhis manifest another 8 Sakhis. They're empowered to do this from Sri Radhika. These are all called Radha Kaya Vyuha. These are all manifesting originally from Sri Radhika. She is the origin. So it's described by Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. There are 300 billion gopis dancing in the Rasa Leela pastime that we just touched on a little bit yesterday, the Sarat Purnima. We didn't actually describe it, but we mentioned it. And these first Sakhis, the Asta Sakhis, they are called Priyanam Sakhis. And Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur and Rupa Goswami, they've described clearly the 5 different camps or groups of all the Sakhis. The Sakhis are divided into groups to create more waves in the nectar ocean of rasa, because in the various groups, they have their own principal identities. They have their own leaders, etc. So in the 4 principal groups, that's the Swapaksh, Vipaksh, the Surit, and the Tatashta. And Manjalali, she has a list of these that we can throw up on the screen, and you can look at them. So these are the 4 groups of gopis, and then there's 5 categories of Sakis within each group. Is Manjulali there?
Yes, I'm there, just looking for the file. 1 sec. Sorry. Where is it? Too many things are open. Here it is. Can you see it?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Sorry for the delay.
So these 4 categories, Swapaksh. Oh, where'd it go? Swapaksh, this is Radha. Swa means own. This is Radha's group. And then you have the Vipaksh. Paksh means like group. So those who are against Radhika's group, in a sense. This is Chandravali. And then there's the Surit, who are friendly towards Radhika's group. And then there's the Tatashta, who are neutral, but in fact more inclined towards Chandravali's group. So these are the 4 divisions amongst all the different gopis that Sri Radhika manifests for the pleasure of Krishna's pastimes. So these pastimes in Vrindavan that we're hearing about, and we will hear about in the next 30 days, many of these pastimes revolve around the politics, we can say, between these 4 groups of gopis. And this adds to the nectar rasa. Oh, you can leave that on the screen, because I'm just going to go to the below there and describe the 5 types of sakis.
You can see
So
it again?
Yes.
Okay.
So we have the saki. Now, in each of those groups, they have 5 different gradations, so to speak. So we have Saki, Nitya Saki, Pran Saki, Priya Saki, and Priyanam Saki. So now we are talking about the Priyanam Saki, or the Asta Saki, these personalities that I've already touched on a little bit. And then they are having complete conjugal, sometimes conjugal relationship directly, sambhog, with Krishna directly. And so are the Priya Sakis, and so are the Sakis. And this is called sambhog ichamai. This is the sambhog ichamai. And then the Nitya Saki and the Pran Sakis in there, they are manjaris, and they have a mood called Icha Tat Bhav Ichamai. This is the description of the moods that they have towards Krishna, that they are just focused on their service to Sri Radhika. So today in this Astasaki Mandir, we are aware of all these different groups and gradations of gopis that Radhika manifests to serve Sri Krishna. And we understand Ramya Kachit Upasana Braja Vardura Varagena Vagalpite. It's been described by Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur that the service and devotion of the gopis is of the highest exhibition of love in existence. So any topic relating to the gopis, you don't need to keep this on the screen anymore now, but if any of the devotees, they want these lists, they can just contact either Manjulali or myself, or go onto my website and you'll find them there. But it's helpful for us we have to appreciate the map, so to speak, like I was describing before, the map of Vrindavan. So this is like something of the map about the gopis and their different categories, their different camps, their different groups, and their different flavors and qualities in particular. So we understand that Lalita Saki, she is 27 days older than Sri Radhika. So in Vedic culture, even being an hour older than a twin brother, for example, puts the younger brother in honor to his older brother for his whole entire life. Just like the distinction, the relationship between Krishna and Balaram. Balaram is only a week older than Krishna, and yet he is the senior in the relationship always. So this is very beautiful to appreciate the honor in the relationships there, in the structure of the relationships amongst the personalities in Vrindavan, and actually in any civilized nation works this way. I've met many Indian people, and they say with great deference of honor towards their elder brothers, etc. And their younger brothers, they're prepared to direct and lead and so on. So Lalita Sakhi, she's considered 27 days older than Sri Radhika, and her residence, her home, is close to Varshana. Varshana is the birthplace of Sri Radhika, and we'll hear about that when we go to when we visit Raval, because there's two appearance pastime places of Radhika. One can be Raval in a different age, a different day of Lord Brahma, and another is Varshana in another day of Lord Brahma. But in this time, when Radhika is growing up, she's growing up in Varshana. This is like the home of Radhika. Actually, they all move from Gokul, which is on the other side of the Jamuna, from where Varshana is. So if you've looked at that map at all, you will follow what I'm explaining here. And when the Keshi demon became too aggressive, then it was described that the residents of Gokul, they move across the Jamuna and they move out to Varshana and Nandagan. They change homes when Krishna's about 4 years old, 3 years old, 4 years old. They move from Gokul and they make the journey around Govardhan, and then they, both the families, Rishabhanu Maharaj and Nanda Maharaj, they have their family groups, and they're very much linked together. They're exceptional friends with each other, Rishabhanu Maharaj and Nanda Baba. So they always travel together. So they come from Gokul and Raval out to Varshana and Nandagan. So right next door to Varshana, where Radharani has her home when she leaves Raval, is Uchagan, and this is the home of Lalita Sakhi, right next to Varshana. And all the other Sakhis, they have their places very close by Varshana. So Lalita, she is 27 days older than Sri Radhika. And Vishaka, she was born at exactly the same moment as Sri Radhika, which makes for an incredible distinctive relationship between Radha and Vishaka. It's amazingly close, and they are practically just like complete twin sisters almost, because they're born at the same moment. Lalita Sakhi, she's the more controlling personality. Her mood is called Pragalbha. She has a dominating nature, which she uses to bring about the meeting between Krishna and Radha. And when we read books like Vidagdha Madhav or Lalit Madhav to some degree, we can appreciate just how much effort these Sakhis have to make to arrange for the pastimes between Radha and Krishna so that they're able to meet, because there's all kinds of obstacles always to make a much more exciting backdrop, and generating greed and enthusiasm is what all these pastimes and obstructions are about, so that when Radha and Krishna do finally meet with each other, then the meeting is so extremely incredible. And then the highest union can actually manifest. And then there's Chitra, and Chitra is, she's 26 days younger than Sri Radhika. So out of all the Astasakis, Chitra is the most junior, we can say. So she has a special place in her relationship with Sri Radhika, because Radhika can boss her around sometimes like this. And this makes a very beautiful relationship, just like Radhika does with her personal manjaris, like Rupa Manjari, etc., Lavanga Manjari, Vilas Manjari, Rati Manjari. All the manjaris, they belong to Radhika. They are her own. They have so much mamata just for Radhika. But the Sakis, they have a different mood towards Radhika, because they also entertain a relationship with Krishna. Radhika daily induces Krishna to go and separately enjoy with these Sakis. So they have this sambhog capacity within them to have a relationship with Krishna. Whereas the Manjaris, of course, they don't even go near that place of relationship with Krishna. Their nishta is just only totally to Radhika. So Chitra is the youngest of these Sakis. And then Champakalata, she's 1 day younger than Radhika. So by appreciating these ages, I think we can start something, we can appreciate the individuality of these Sakis that we're here glorifying today in this Astasaki Mandir. It's their place. It's the meditation that we carry or that we absorb ourselves in while we're in this particular mandir. It's a very powerful, potent place of meditation. I can remember many years actually, Pujapad Nemi Maharaj, he would be speaking in front of the Parikrama party at this place, but today he wanted to do Sanatan Goswami, so he's graciously left me this Saki Mandir, Astasaki Mandir. And then Tungavidya, as we described before, is 5 days older than Radhika. So there's somewhat mood of honor towards Tungavidya. And then Indulekha is 3 days younger than Radhika. And Rangadevi and Sudevi, they are 7 days younger than Radhika. So these are the different ages of the Sakis, and they're quite distinct. I mean, Rupa Goswami, this particular book, I would encourage you all to have and look at regularly, because this describes in so much detail the nature and the activities and the personalities of these Sakis. And it's remarkable how much depth Srila Rupa Goswami has gone into describing the different natures and specialities of each of these Sakis and the Manjaris and the Sakis, their own personal Sakis, because these 8 principal Sakis, they have their own groups of Sakis, etc. All these divisions are there amongst the millions and billions of gopis. And they're all described as having completely different natures. There's perhaps like 1 or 2 or 3 that have the same natures. It's like, for example, the description of Radhika. She's described as Atyantika Adhika. Atyantika means she's the topmost. There's no one who comes even close to her. No one can compare to the qualities that Sri Radhika possesses. And the next gradation down, so to speak, is Apekshika Adhika. And this is like Lalita or Vishaka. They are comparatively great, but not anything like the same principal quality that Sri Radhika holds. So all of this meditation on these different qualities, the different terminologies, the different names, etc., the Lagu Sneha, the Sama, etc. There's many different categories of gopis, and Rupa Goswami has gone into great depth to share with us, to give us, if our greed becomes sufficient, then we can take great interest in, well, what are the activities of the gopis? It's like Lalita Sakhi, for example. She's described as making incredible earrings. There are 5 types of flower earrings. And Lalita Sakhi, she's the master of making these types of earrings. So all of these are described. And then Vishaka is exceptional in languages, etc. And so many qualities that Vishaka Sakhi, she has herself. And all of the qualities of all the different gopis are spelt out for us very clearly. And what is exactly their dress, who are their husbands, etc. Because the Sakhis, of course, they all have husbands, because to engage in this parakya that Krishna is manifesting during his Vrindavan pastimes, they have to have, of course, a husband. And it's remarkable to appreciate how practically all of the gopis, in some way or other, they're all related to Krishna through their husbands or their aunties or their nephews, etc. They all have family relationships with each other. So all of these descriptions are very beautifully described in this book. And I'm not going to go into the details of this now, but this is really for our personal meditation when we read about the glories of these personalities, these Sakhis, and how much, how extraordinary qualities they have to provide the facility for Radha and Krishna to meet. Radharani, she loves to be with her Sakhis. She's always with her Sakhis. It's not like Krishna often is roaming around alone, or maybe just with Madhu Mangal, or maybe Subal, just maybe 1 or 2. But Radharani, she's always with a group of girlfriends, and Krishna finds great satisfaction in that when he meets Sri Radhika. And of course, Lalita Sakhi, she's very bold with Krishna also. And the whole conversation between them is very jovial and very sweet in such a company of such expert personalities as the Sakhis. So we get an insight into their characters and their natures, and it's just extraordinary. It's astonishing, the detail that Rupa Goswami has gone into to describe the different types of activities they perform. Like Vishaka, for example, she will tend to the trees in Vrindavan that bear fruits. And Chitra Sakhi, she will tend to the trees that don't bear fruits, just flowers. All trees bear fruits of some sort, but not eating fruits. So all of these different details are actually described extraordinarily at length within most of the pages of this particular book. And when we hear from our Gurudev, he's described something of these glories. He hasn't described extensively these glories. He's described the pastimes between the Sakhis and Radhika, but he hasn't described their personalities, to my knowledge, so much in depth. So I'm just going to leave it here for today. Our time is practically over, and we're getting tremendous inspiration from being in this Asta Sakhi Mandir, because we're remembering the focus and importance of our lives as practitioners, as sadhaks, is to aim for the devotion, to try to encourage the devotion within our hearts of the gopis. We are in anugatya of the gopis. We are following in their footsteps. We are rag anugas, following in the footsteps of the beloved gopis of Braj. So this is our focus and our meditation during our whole parikrama. The purpose of every katha, basically, is to inspire devotion into the heart of the listeners and the speaker himself. We are always concerned, where is this mood of devotion? How can I increase my devotion? And this is the mood of all the Sakhis, and they are assisting totally. It's like we sing in our prayer every morning in the Guru Vastakam, how Guru is very much anxious to make the arrangements for the meeting of Radha and Krishna. In the 6th verse, it's described, Nikunja Yuna Ratikeli Siddhai. So all of the activities of the manjaris in our Guru Vargya are connecting to the Sakhis. So the Sakhis are in a different group to the manjaris, because the Sakhis will engage directly in conjugal pastimes with Krishna. It's like in the Ras Leela. It's just the Sakhis who are actually dancing with Krishna. It's not the manjaris. The manjaris are serving in different capacities during the Ras Leela. So we are, by the gift of Mahaprabhu, eligible for this Manjari Bhav at some future lifetime. Sakhi Bhav is a different category altogether. So where we've come, we're glorifying the nature and speciality of the Sakhis, particularly the Asta Sakhis. So this is something, I've just touched on some hints, basically. It's such a vast topic, but we are on parikrama, and this is the very last place of our parikrama, but it's to leave us with this anticipation of sweeter and sweeter descriptions, which will come through the next 4 weeks, the next 30 days. We will always, there will be the backdrop of the gopis' prem and the gopis' devotion towards Krishna, for us to become inspired to follow in their footsteps as Raga Anuga Bhaktas. So thank you very much for listening, and may these beautiful pastimes become more and more inspired in our hearts over the next 30 days. Jai. Vanshakapaturubhyascha, Kripa Sindhavevacha, Patitanam Pavnebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namaha.
Haribol, Maharaj, you concluded today's paragram so beautifully. I don't really want to add anything, but I just want to say very briefly that I realized that one of the specialities of Vrindavan, I just realized just now, one of the specialities of Vrindavan is that it's full of, is Udapan, the stimulus for the Vaishnavas to elucidate in such deep manners on all of these topics. So we're very grateful to be going to Vrindavan via this format of Zoom and hearing in such great detail. And I've heard many of these pastimes today before, but in such detail, I heard them today I've not heard before. And I feel, therefore, that there's much more has come. So I feel a lot of gratitude. So thank you so much for engaging me, Maharaj, and making sure that I'm here. And like you said before, taking me by the hand to come with you on Parikram.
And Nemi Maharaj.
And Nemi Maharaj, of course.
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So just a very brief recap. I just wanted to wrap up something today. That today we looked at the map of Vrindavan, and we glorified Jamuna Devi, and we glorified Prabodhananda Saraswati, and we glorified Kaliya, and we've glorified Sanatan Goswami, and now we've just concluded with the Astasaki. So there were these 6 topics that we've covered that we can meditate on for our chanting for the rest of the day. So that was my conclusion then. Okay. Jai.